If you grew up in the 1960s or early 1970s, you probably remember doing things that seem completely foreign to younger generations today. As a baby boomer myself, these are 5 things that really take me back to my childhood and teen years that today's kids will never experience. Waiting for the TV to warm up today, when you turn on your flat screen TV, the picture pops up instantly. But with old tube TVs, you had to wait up to 30 seconds for the picture to actually appear and stabilize. This was because the cathode ray tube inside that generated the images needed to physically warm up first. You'd turn the TV on and hear the click and soft hum indicating the power was on. But the screen would just be a glowing gray fog at first. After a few long seconds, a very fuzzy black and white image would start to appear, flickering and drifting in and out of focus. The impatient kid in me just wanted my cartoons to start already. During the warm-up phase, you'd see the image brighten and sharpen progressively, until finally, all the static and distortion cleared up. The warm-up time depended on the size and make of the TV. Some took longer than others to fully heat the cathode ray tube. Bigger screens and older TVs seemed to take forever compared to smaller, newer ones. Once the TV finished warming up, the picture would be nice and steady. But if it was bumped or shaken, you'd have to suffer through another annoying fuzzy warm-up period. We tend to take clear instant-on screens for granted now, but first waiting for the picture was just part of the vintage television experience. Milk delivery. Back in the day, milk was delivered directly to your doorstep by the milkman. A few times a week, you'd hear the clinking of glass milk bottles as the milk truck made its way through the neighborhood in the early morning. Families would leave a small paper note in the box by their front door, indicating what they wanted for the next delivery. 2%, 3 bottles, for example. Or chocolate, 1 bottle. You'd also leave out the empty glass bottles from the previous delivery for the milkman to take back and reuse. The milk arrived nice and cold, freshly bottled from the local dairy. It was such a convenient service, almost like having a grocery store come right to your door. Of course, no preservatives meant the milk had to be consumed pretty quickly before it spoiled. And you had to wash out those glass bottles diligently each week for reuse. But having milk delivered each week was a staple convenience for families. The milkman knew all his customers by name and would even leave little treats for kids sometimes. It was a more personal, trusted service than buying from some faceless grocery store. But with the advent of cheaper plastic jugs and refrigerated trucks, the era of milk delivery sadly faded away. Manual car transmissions. Learning to drive back in the 1960s or 1970s usually meant mastering the intricacies of a manual transmission. Automatic transmissions existed, but were less common, especially for the average family car. That meant controlling a car with a gear shift lever mounted on the steering column, along with a third pedal, the clutch. The position of the gear shift lever controlled which of the 3 gears the car was in. First gear was for starting from a stopped position and going slowly. Second gear let you build up speed. And third gear was used for normal cruising. To switch between gears, you had to press the clutch pedal down with your left foot. This disengaged the gears so you could move the shifter freely between positions. Releasing the clutch smoothly and carefully was key. Otherwise, the car would jolt and stall. Learning how to start from first gear took practice. You had to slowly release the clutch while gently pressing the gas pedal to get moving without stalling. Stopping also required care, shifting back down into first before coming to a complete stop. Mastering the choreographed footwork of clutch, brake, and gas pedals was an art form. Doing it smoothly required repetition until it became second nature, but it sure felt pretty cool once you got the hang of driving a stick shift. Party lines. Up until the mid-1960s, many households shared a single telephone line with multiple other households in the neighborhood. This was known as a party line. Sometimes, up to a dozen families would be assigned to the same line and have to share it for all incoming and outgoing calls. To place a call, you first had to pick up the receiver and listen to make sure no one else was already using the line. You'd hear their conversation come through before dialing, and they'd hear your dial tone when you picked up, so they knew to hang up and free up the line. There was no privacy. You had to politely ask others on your party line to get off if you had an urgent call, and you tried not to eavesdrop too obviously, though listening in was tempting at times. The upside was the cost savings from multiple households sharing infrastructure expenses. But as more telephone lines were built out, party lines fortunately faded away, giving most households private service by the 1970s. No more awkwardly interrupting your neighbor's long-winded conversation because you had to make a call. When the picture on your television started to go bad, with blurry images or static, it meant there was likely a problem with one of the tubes inside. Televisions back then were full of electronic tubes that heated up to amplify the signal and control the electron beam that created the images. To diagnose exactly which tube was faulty, you'd carefully unplug the TV, remove the back panel, and gently remove all of the tubes. Next, you would go down to the local drugstore, television shop, or electronics repair store where they had special equipment called a tube tester. You'd place each tube from the TV into the appropriate socket on the tube tester one by one. The machine would test things like emission levels and gas content to see if the tube was still functioning properly or needed to be replaced. Watching the tube tester work its magic was pretty fascinating, almost like a mad scientist lab with buzzing, blinking lights. When you finally detected which tube was the culprit, you would buy an exact replacement to switch out back home. Then hopefully your TV picture was restored. While today's technology makes life easier, those classic experiences really created special memories for those of us who grew up in that era. Did I miss any of your old school favorites? Let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching.